Hello and welcome to Prevail at the Tactical Edge through Mission Partner Environments, a dispatch from Indo-Pac 2024, brought to you by GDIT. I'm your host, George Jackson with GovExec TV. In today's dynamic and interconnected battlefield, MPEs reach across services, coalition partners, and allies to create a safe environment for sharing data and information. Each organization has a unique set of capabilities, but they share common goals, especially in the areas of interoperability and security. Today you'll learn more about why those capabilities are moving to the tactical edge and how they'll help the Department of Defense maintain operational advantage in the face of evolving threats. Joining me now, Colonel Michael Toby Hlad. He is Chief C4 Ops, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command J63. Sir, welcome, good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us today. I'm excited for the conversation.
Always a pleasure to join Eric Tapp on a panel. He is MP lead over at GDIT. Sir, great to see you again.
Happy to be here, George. Thanks for having me.
Chief Warrant Officer 5 Yuri Camesi is Senior Technical Advisor G6 over at I-Corps. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Last but not least, Bob Sholtis, Chief Information Officer, Deputy ACS G39 and G6, U.S. Marine Corps Forces Pacific, MARFORPAC. Good to see you again.
Here to serve.
So, Colonel, kick us off. We're talking about MPEs today, mission partner environments. Give our audience a little mini TED Talk, a crash course. What are MPEs?
Yeah, George, thanks for that. So as we look at the priorities and the important networks in Indo-Pacific, one of the priorities for Paparo is our partners and allies. So how are we going to be able to communicate with our partners and allies, really information networks? That is the mission partner environment we're talking about today. So how can we do war fighting, command and control, share those critical applications with our treaty allies and partners? And for Indo-PACOM, we've dubbed our newly minted network the Indo-PACOM Mission Network. And so that is our ability to take right now, which is 27 bilateral networks, and how can we make that into multilateral, shared, zero trust, resilient domain. And so that's our bid for success, really, from the MPE standpoint for Indo-PACOM and partner sharing.
Maybe I'll ask at this point to do just a bit of a round robin on where you come into the MPE ecosystem, I'll call it. I'm guessing at a strategic level. Am I reading that right, sir?
Yeah, so from the Indo-PACOM standpoint, we operate at the strategic, operational, tactical at the J6. We provision networks to our partners and allies in support of our components. We're also developing a network, next generation zero trust network for that. So both working some of the policy, zero trust policy, as well as no-kidding the engineering to support the extension into theater.
Eric, you've been doing MPEs, I think, before they were called MPEs. Could you give the audience a little background on how you've touched this space, sir?
So since 2019, I've been supporting the effort to drive mission partner interoperability and mission partner networks to the next generation, focusing on data centricity, focusing on ICAM, zero trust, all of the modern technologies that will allow us to speed and enhance our warfighters' ability to share information and gain a better situational understanding across all the elements. So I started doing that work at US CENTCOM, and I worked on that till 2022, and since then I've been employed by GDIT, and I wanted to bring some of that knowledge and understanding out to industry so that industry can turn around and start really helping the department accelerate those efforts. A lot of it had been homegrown up to that point, and we really need industry to supercharge that, get it moving, show us what's in the art of the possible, so that the department can then be the benefactors of those capabilities and employ them to their fullest extent.
Chief, as I understand it, a big part of your portfolio is helping to build these capabilities for partner nations specifically. Am I remembering that correctly?
You are correct. So us as core, first core here stationed at JBLM, we centralize our efforts through a Centrix J platform or Centrix K, any of the Centrix environments. We have to homegrown, like we talked about, tap into the MPE at the enterprise, but still we're building it out for every exercise. We work with GDIT to build out each of those with a zero trust, because protection and safeguarding the data has to be done. You can't just outline my data and share with everybody, because not everybody needs to know. So partnering up with those requirements is neat, but we're building it each time, every time. And as the Colonel said, it's not going to sustain over a period of time. It's just so much capacity of building and tearing for every exercise that is just not sustainable over a period of time. But we are doing that, yes.
What about you, sir?
So at the component level, so I sit in between the Colonel and the Chief Warrant Officer, right? And so my challenge is making sure that our Marines that we project forward then have the right variants of mission partner environment for the nation they're working with, and that the Korean centrics that we're working with is the same Korean centrics that the Army is employing, and that they have the forward time to build that out before an operation begins. And that's the challenge in the current state.
Correct.
Yeah, just to jump on that, I think one of the key elements they hit on, no longer is it acceptable for us just to have that bilateral link with those nations, right? As we're looking at the challenges of the Pacific, how can we bring those domains together in MPE so we can have a multilateral sharing that's better both for the partner, both for the warfighter, and for the headquarters, so we can operate at speed and scale.
You introduced a term before we went on the air, data centricity.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Why is it super important to MPEs?
So as we're talking about mission partner environments, we're talking about a zero trust network, data becomes that much more important, right? And so I think that's both the services and combat commands, we're at a change point, an inflection point of we're going from a network-centric environment to a data-centric environment, think data-centric. So no longer is it about firewalls and securing the edge, right? We're securing the data, right? So that's important when we're talking about different countries' data, and we're sharing that in a multi-enclave environment.
CJADC2 is something I've heard a lot today. Eric, I heard it during the opening keynote. General Flynn mentioned it during the luncheon just a few moments ago. What is CJADC2? How does it relate to mission partner environment, sir?
I would say that mission partner environment is a perfect analog for what we want CJADC2 to be. Within the mission partner problem space right now, we're looking for ways to enhance our ability to share, speed that up, make it seamless across the board for both the US and our mission partners. We want to do that within JADC2. We want that to be that north-south. We want NIPR, SIPR, JWICS, all of that information to flow seamlessly through all of the different operational domains across all the different services. So it ultimately really starts with the mission partner problem space. Solving that gives us the blueprint to apply that to all of the other elements of CJADC2, I believe.
And tying to that, if I may, is like in not work within a stovepipe. Like we work with a coalition partner this time, next month another partner, we have to either rebuild or refabricate that with JADC2, and the unification of that are having that multilateral environment. We could pivot across each of the partner nations equally and have that real-time or near real-time data versus, wait a minute, got to stand it up. All right, everybody put your data in. It's kind of like working backwards. It doesn't make sense. So all these layer into a more cohesive like awareness of what's happening in the theater. Overall.
Yuri, though, as you try to not stovepipe, DoD also has to do a good job of almost gating access for partner nations, for others through zero trust, through identity credentialing and access management. Could you layer that in, if you would?
Absolutely. So part of that conversation, partnering with GDIT and Microsoft and other industry partners, is how do we level and manage that data at unit level. So scraping the data, tagging the data, making available for partner nation, depending on if it's a partner sister service like the Marines, they can see this picture. We can share equally across it, or it becomes one that, hey, if you're a Japanese Army or Korean, you can see this segment even though we're all working the same space. So zero trust is the topmost layer and all the pillars across. We're working with ICANN for identity right now and trying to entrust that through my login. Is it about where I'm reaching the data from, like the kernel indicated? Is it coming from a certain area code, and then we kind of filter that out. And of course you got to trust those, and there's a level of trust both from a device and from an individual. So all those play into a factor in all levels across all nations.
Bob, as you mentioned, you bring a great component level or service level perspective to this dialogue. Maybe this would be a good time for you to introduce us to a new section of our discussion on some of the tactical gaps, the challenges that exist in mission partner environments right now. What are you seeing from your perspective?
Yeah, so some of the challenges are you have First Corps doing amazing things, but you look at how is that scalable. I think first we need some of the things we need to do at a service level is look at our data standards and data policies and begin to publish those out and break some of the old cultures that we've been accustomed to. The other thing is service moves at the service speed. We have the J6 process. That takes a little bit longer than the traditional, how can I use JCC opportunities and funding streams to go ahead and leverage those opportunities and allow the service to adopt those and accelerate what would normally be a 5-year J6 process. Now I can use opportunities like MCTISA, who is working directly with First Corps, influencing the Marine Corps' acquisition strategy, and so therefore we could scale a capability vice try and get in one unit. So that's, as a component, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, just to jump in there, I think Bob hit on a key point. The data standardization, we have got to get right from a DoD and a service standpoint, right? Because that will help us align joint fires, whatever application, whatever warfighting function you want to work in there really starts with that data standardization. I take it a step further, right? Working with our allies and partners, and I think this is where GDIT and Industry can help us, is we've got to be interoperable with our partners. It's not just about our services, right? It is, hey, Japan, South Korea, Australia, are we meeting the same interoperability for their partner environment so we can be truly interoperable from a data and a network standpoint?
Do you want to address that too, Eric? The interoperability with partners, with industry, are there still challenges ahead for that as well?
Absolutely. I think there's still very much a large amount of education that needs to go on amongst industry, amongst the services and the entirety of the DoD, and get those partners, those foreign partners in early and often and make them part of the solution. It's not a coalition capability if the US develops it, right? So we have to have them involved with writing the solutions, writing the standards, because you've got standards in Europe that aren't applicable out here, and you've got standards and behaviors and cultural mannerisms that don't apply to Europe. But there's some baseline applicability across the board there. So getting them involved, and then the different elements within the DoD can cross-level those across and bring European capabilities and ideas to the Pacific and vice versa, and we can start to see global standardization, and we can facilitate that.
Yuri, building these mission partner environments and maintaining those mission partner environments are two different things, right? Do they have a unique set of challenges, whether you're talking about building or maintaining?
Correct. So as our battle rhythm goes through the Pacific, we're standing up one even currently now for Centrix J for the Yamasaka exercise coming up, and then right after that we pivot, and of course we can't use the same environment, so we gotta like deflate the Centrix J, bring up Centrix K. We tap into the enterprise or the Centrix J that's, Centrix K that's already on the peninsula, but it's a whole flavor. So the team back at JBLM, we're building them and shutting them down productly. We're pushing out equipment sometimes faster than others. We're shrinking down the aperture and trying to make the service at the edge as best as we can. But it's a continuous overhead of standing it up, taking it down, making sure the connectivity is there, the pathing is there, but also security is there too. So it's never just a one-piece meal. So the plug-in in a more enterprise level with support at the edge is ultimately what we want to do, to be able to pivot. Otherwise, it's a huge, like even mentioned, takes a couple of months to plan that out. You know, what service do you need? It should be baseline, which we are getting there, but there's still some hiccups that are slightly different in Korea, that are different in Japan, or different with the Philippines or other partner nations. So it's an up and down jargon. We shut one down, pick it back up the next one. So.
Sure.
So just to add to that, so you look at First Corps' challenges and think if we're doing a joint landing or a joint operation, and so many units tearing down and building back up and hoping that we're doing it the same way, in the same manner, in the same connections. Exactly.
That's fair. They have different flavors, so we can't vet directly. We have to have theirs coincide into our transition or DMZ, and then allow them in with certain levels. But you're right, it doesn't require just us. Like they mentioned, it's not US built, it's also the partner nations. The Australians have their own environment, so we have to plug and make sure that they can share the information.
And different levels of skill sets, different talents at different echelons. It's a challenge.
Sure.
So I do think we have a lot of opportunity though with our allies and partners on where they have matured, right, from that standpoint. And so I think as each of the services had developed their solutions, as we tie into an enterprise, be it Indo-Pacific Mission Network or another entity, as we bring them in, I think we do have significant opportunity to leverage industry partners and what they're doing. Violently agree, right? They are part of that solution, right? So working hand in hand with our Australian partners and others. So it is a truly coalition joint solution.
Is it also a challenge, Eric, that most everybody, all of those partners, are willing to share a certain amount of information with the United States, but they probably aren't as willing to share that information with one another? Is that a misinterpretation of mine?
No, that's absolutely true. There's definitely cultural sensitivities when you start to talk to partners about mixing their data with other countries' data that maybe they don't really like that much. And that's where we come back to that education process, understanding the true capability and security of those technologies, and then sharing that with your partners to build confidence in the solutions and capabilities that we're employing is a key aspect of this, because that's going to drive a much more broad adoption across those partner sets. Because again, you have US, Central Command with their slew of partners and their slew of problems. Europe, same with NATO, and then out here in the Pacific region, you've got a bunch of different countries who have historical concerns with their neighbors right next door. And so it starts with focusing on those core partners, understanding the capability, and then educating and bringing in the rest.
Let's start talking about opportunities as opposed to challenges for a bit. We've mentioned scaling already. Colonel, maybe we'll go from strategic down to the tip of the spear, but give me a sense of some of the strategic opportunities that you see for doing this right.
One, the context is our partners and allies are asymmetric advantage, right? As we're looking at the threats in the Pacific. They are coming to the table saying we want to be a part of these networks, right? That's the opportunity for both industry and for us, right? They want to willingly share critical mission data. Are there lessons in that? Sure. But I think that's the opportunity we've got to leverage, both with, hey, they want to be more secure with their information. They want to trust us with that information so we can share securely, and more importantly, operate at the speed of relevance, right, in the Pacific. So I think that's the key opportunity. And as both the gentlemen were saying, it's going to save money in scope and scale at the tactical edge once we align ourselves with this MPE capability.
Chief, have you seen this actually lead to closer relationships with international partners? I mean, do you think that MPE done right results in closer ties between folks who partner with the U.S.?
Yes, George. For at least what I wasn't part of it, but I know my guys told me between Australia and Japan in the last Yamasakura 85, they did interoperate closer to where the Japanese had an understanding where, hey, they were going to bring them in and actually share more. And there were some distinctions between what could and what could not be, but they're part of the conversation more and more. And they come over for every other year. We partner with the Japanese in the odd seasons of Yamasakura where they come and sit at JBLM and we interoperate that way. So that facilitation has brought those environments closer. And likewise, we would like to continue to partner with each one across at the ACC and all the way down with each one across the board. And so, like the Colonel said, they want to partner with us. It's just how do we show them that we protect the data, that we're not giving them like, oh, we give the US, but they're giving it to who they don't like. We got to create that trust and that relationship, knowing that how we present the data is truly a protective way. So yes, it is.
What about the warfighter, Bob? What do they get out of this?
Well, so I think it's important to almost take a step back to where we were 2 years ago.
Okay.
When Eric and I were having this conversation with you then, and my team basically almost had to look up what is ICAM, right? and so now you look at where we are today, where Echelon 4 and above, we're entering a period where it doesn't matter what partner nation you're a part of, that you're going to be part of this Indo-PACOM mission network, and at least at the senior levels, you're going to be able to share data at scale that we've never been able to. So there's a capability called Commercial Solutions for Classified. We're getting ready to scale that out, and between the service, Marine Corps, partnering with the GCC, Indo-PACOM, we're going to be able to host an instantiation of IMN that will allow us to the numbers of 1,500, 2,000 or so, push that capability down to lower echelons. At the same time, being able to take Marine Corps lower tactical MPE capabilities and marry those up with the accomplishments that GDIT and First Corps is able to do, working together. 2 years from now, we're going to have even a much greater conversation.
Yeah, so just to build on Bob's point, I mean, that's the key tactical expansion of MPE, where now we have tactical forces forward, right, that can now leverage multilateral communications, be it for fires, sustainment, right? That's a capability that didn't exist before. So now it may not be coming from, the US Army, it could be coming from Japan. Right, true multilateral operations enabled by MPE, right? So because of the Pacific, we need our partners and allies, right? Just the tyranny of distance. This will allow that greater coordination at the tactical level.
What do we miss, Eric? What else do you see from a benefits perspective?
I mean, I think we've really hammered it home, the importance to the warfighter. Speed, better situational awareness. Those are invaluable. True coalition warfighting. I mean, Toby just touched on it. Going from fighting with partners in their designated lanes to true integrated warfare where their sensors are feeding our systems so, a third party's soldiers can put rounds on target. It's the synergistic effect where we bring overwhelming combat power and allows us to dominate the battlefield. So it all starts with this mission partner environment. Pushing it to the next level really can change the face of warfare, I believe.
Chief, where do you see innovation happening right now? Is there a story, a case study, a partnership out there that you think, okay, this has the promise that Bob mentioned over the past 2 years, how far we've come on things like ICAM, Zero Trust, and mission partner environments? What stands out to you?
Well, honestly, as we move into this next Yamasakura, the partnering we have with Australia and Japan will just synergize that more. Working in the next year, going into Freedom Shield in Korea, South Korea will just enhance that more. So lessons learned we do this coming up next 2 months will feed into that. And with all these technology I mentioned about, I want to take a step into it to enhance and push that forward to where we can synergize, because I don't want to keep doing repeat just because we've done in the past doesn't mean we do it the same way. So what everybody's talked about here, I want to bring back to the planning and say, hey, can we incorporate some of what you talked about CFSC in Korea? Can we leverage the enterprise solution of CXK in a platform where we as the core and also our subordinate units can leverage the fires, the logistics? Can we plug into it and have that? Because that chimes well, then it feeds into every other future one. So really, there's no one entity. It's just built upon each evolution. With GDIT in the last one, we built based on across Active Directory, or Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory structure for ICAM. Now we're moving into a more clustered, more prone zero trust evolution, shrinking it down, being a Kubernetes plugin, shrinking it down to be more flexible, more mobile. So all these play into a factor where we provide the security. So it's just lessons learned each time moving forward, and just being aware of what's happening around us and not just figure out like, we have to do it this way because it's just been done that way. No, let's push the envelope one way for more. So each one builds upon the rest.
Colonel, I know you're not a legislator. You're probably not drafting policy, but I have heard, and not just relative to conversations around mission partner environments or contested logistics or even IT modernization, policy and technology need to be in lockstep. And at a strategic level, do you think that those two camps are communicating in a really effective way? You know, talking about policy, talking about technology, and making sure that the two are singing from the same sheet of music.
George, it's a great point. So we have a clear line in the sand of where we've got to go for our mission partner environments. There's no doubt policy has lagged behind for zero trust environments, mission partner environments, but I think that is being overcome by leadership, right, and a clear understanding of the operational imperative of these, the warfighting networks that we're going to leverage in the Pacific are going to be joint, or they're going to be coalition. That requires a next generation zero trust mission partner environment. And so I think understanding that requirement, that is a clear mandate for us, we are able to overcome some of those policy challenges. But there is no doubt, and I think I talked about it before, it's a shift from a network-centric understanding of our security to a data-centric zero trust understanding of our security that's always evolving, right? And we haven't talked about it that much, but it's a more resilient partner network of the future, right, than what we're operating today. And I think that's important, is not only are we trusting the data, we're trusting the information with our partners.
George, I just want to foot stomp. Having worked in this space since 2018, 2019, I am very excited about the inertia that this effort has gained over the last 5 or 6 years. I think we've got leaders and the right focus at the top level of DoD shaping and directing now and providing the necessary guidance so that all the organizations down the chain, from strategic to tactical, the services, the combatant commands, really have a much better understanding of the direction that they need to be shooting, so that we can start to align those targets so we're hitting at the same point. Even though we're in parallel, even though we're not necessarily working on the exact same thing, having a direction in the appropriate azimuth is critical, and I've seen a great shift in the last couple of years. I'm really excited the direction it's going.
It's clear from the speeches that we heard today that that message is getting delivered from the very top. I don't think I've heard as much focus on technology at Indo-PACOM as I have in years past. It seems to be really ingrained in the dialogue. Why now, Bob? Why is this time period so impactful? To Eric's point, why is this so important?
Well, the imperative is that our strategic competitor is focused to conduct activities they've stated by 2027. And so we need to be ready now and practice do sets and reps now. That's what deterrence is.
Yuri, I'm going to give you the final word of the whole program.
The whole program? Oh,
so no pressure, sir, but make it good.
Well, honestly, from an MPE program as a whole, at the core level, working all the way up to Indo-PACOM, it becomes a unification of efforts. We all got to drive to one force, protect the data, make us compatible, and allow fluidity of information to achieve protection in the theater, the Indo-PACOM theater, with tyranny of distance in mind. So that's really the challenge, and it's different, but it's something that we all can take on to make it that much better.
Colonel Toby Hlad, Bob Sholtis, Eric Tapp, and Yuri Camesi. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, our audience, for tuning in. A big thanks to APCEA for hosting a great event and to GDIT for making programs like this one possible. I hope you walk away from today's conversations with a few notes about the key challenges to building and maintaining mission partner environments where innovation is happening and why it's so critical to get this right now. If you enjoyed this topic and want to learn more about some of the forces shaping military operations in the Indo-Pacific, check out our companion program, How to Prevail in an Age of Contested Logistics. Watch it now at govexec.com/events. For GovExec TV on assignment in Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm George Jackson. Aloha.
Dominance on the modern battlefield requires interoperability with global mission partners. The strength of the coalition is what will ensure the security of our nation and partner nations well into the future. For decades, GDIT has led DoD's most complex mission partner environment challenges. Our experience has enabled critical capabilities in peacetime and in conflict. And the mission is dynamic, requiring sharing at the speed of operations. At GDIT, we deliver strategic and tactical solutions that harness zero trust to enable the future of warfighting, spanning network and data-centric capabilities at all levels of classification, and ranging from the most stable to the most austere environments at the tactical edge. The future of MPE is responsive, adapting to evolving requirements, secure, and available when our warfighters need it most. GDIT, secure collaboration on a global scale.